Spoken Labour.
I went to sleep that night without knowing that it would be the last night I ever spent in that bed at my parents' house in London. Meredith, my mum shook me awake. The room was dark, making it obvious it wasn't morning yet, or not time to get up for school anyway. Mum, I mumbled in my half-asleep state. It's time to go. Everything I told you about those stories is true. It's time for you to leave us so you can train to be a protector. Your dad and I, we've done everything we possibly can to prepare you.
First Charge is the first book in the Destiny Initiative series by Amanda Steele. The book can be purchased in paperback from Amazon. The ebook can also be purchased on Kindle, Kobo, Apple Books, and many others. Spoken Thank you today for tuning in to Spoken Label. Spoken Label was originally set up at the beginning of 2016 and as of recording has over 200 sessions in our archive. Although the podcast can be heard on Anchor, iTunes, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and literally 10 or 11 other networks, the full archive can be found at Spoken Label, and all one word, spokenlabel.bandcamp.com. On Bandcamp, it is set as pay what you want, so you are entitled, if you wish, you can download it or stream it for nothing. But if you're going to throw me a couple of pennies my way, it is always eternally grateful to help me maintain the operating costs and future running costs of the podcast. Enjoy. Spoken Label.
Hi guys, Andy N, Spoken Label, back in the house. Just finished work, literally about 5 minutes ago. So the great stuff. Shutting down the works laptop and getting me on to go on Spoken Label. So that's the way I am. So I've got a lovely young lady with me today, and I've known her for a few years now through my night to Speakeasy. And she's been quiet for a while, but she's recently reappeared at Speakeasy and has a new book she wants to talk about as well. So, my mysterious friend, would you like to introduce yourself to everybody? Tell them who you are. Tell them a little bit about your writing, and we'll take it from there.
Hello, I'm Helena Jane. I first started speaking at Speakeasy, oh my gosh, about 3 years ago.
Yeah, that was when you were a student back then as well, weren't you, doing your degree?
I was a first year student. It was Speakeasy was the first place I ever read poetry out loud, and I was terrified. I remember just shaking. In fact, I don't remember any of the actual speaking. I only remember just sitting back down afterwards and like downing a bottle of wine. So
oh, I can remember that. I can remember that. Yeah. Oh, I well remember that. Like it was like I remember Amanda, my partner, coming up to you first time you read there. Could have tried talking to you in the second half. She couldn't get any sense out of you.
Oh no, yeah, and also I remember I knocked over a lamp on my way in, and I like caught it, and it was fine, but it was just like everyone suddenly turned and stared at me, and I was like, I've made a terrible impression, and I've been here 5 minutes.
Yeah, and you didn't come back. You didn't come back again for 2.5 years after
that. No, unfortunately, yeah, I kind of took a break from doing readings and stuff just because I was kind of like using the same material over and over again, and I felt very much like I just need to kind of take some time and figure out what else I can write. And also then university kind of was like suddenly sped up and became very real, and then I had to get a job, so that came in the way of things. So it was all kind of like at one time, but never stopped writing, always kind of like penning away.
Yeah, and that's why we're here today, really, aren't we? Because you have brought out a novella fairly recently as well, called The Winter of Our Femininity. Now, I want to. We've got plenty we could talk to about this. I've read most of this book. This little book is excellent. So, but I want to know first of all, then, where did this come from? This idea for this book?
So this book, I would say, it's kind of been like 20 years in the making.
Wow.
It's stuff. Yeah, I know. Like 2 years old, penning down already. No, it was this. It was all. It's all.
You're early starter, were you?
Yeah. Oh no, I wish I could claim that, but unfortunately not. But no, it is definitely based off of stuff that I wrote when I was younger, and it's based off experiences I had. And I mean, it's all fictional, but there is that kind of nuance of like my own personal experiences, and that's why I think some people are able to really resonate with it. I've gotten some lovely messages about people kind of being like, yes, I went through this, and like I know what you're talking about, and it's that's just the best thing to kind of experience and see. But yeah, so the actual idea for the piece came from, I was at a house party and I was completely drunk. Sorry, Mum. And I was walking downstairs and my shoe came off, and like I watched my shoe fall off my foot and like tumble down these stairs, and I was like, and I just had this whole idea. So I like ran out to this garden in the student house and I was like recording a note on my phone and I was talking this idea through. And my friends were like, what is wrong with you? I was like, I've got to go home. I've got to write this. I didn't write anything that night. But the next morning I woke up and I was like, this could be something. So that's when it was kind of born and it became something. And then it was my dissertation piece for university. And then after I submitted it, I kind of just felt like it wasn't finished. That like, because the dissertation was only 9,000 words. And I was like, this isn't enough for this story. And I don't feel like this story has been told properly because I've had a word limit to fit. So I just kept writing. And then I approached my publishers and they were like, they read it and they loved it. And they were like, just lengthen it, do whatever you want and we'll publish it. So that's been a fun experience of just kind of like, yeah, just like the whole freedom. And it was fun. Like we were on a Google Doc with it. And so I typed something and then I'd get like 5 comments being like, yes, yeah, that. Or actually, you've spelt that completely wrong. This doesn't make any sense. And it'd be like me at like 5 a.m. like typing rapidly, but not actually making sense.
Oh, brilliant. You made me smile then you talking about when you wrote and you was drunk at a house party. I know when I've done writing before now, just because of the age thing here, like I don't drink nowadays, but when I used to be, so it was your age, I'd be writing at a house party. I spend probably about 2 days trying to translate what I hand wrote. So at least nowadays, you don't have to worry about it being handwriting.
Some weird notes on yeah, some like thankfully like having my phone with me means I can just type it in the notes, but sometimes they make no sense at all. And it's like, who wrote this? Because this is like at the moment I thought it was so like beautiful and amazing. And I'm like, I look it up on my phone and it's actually just like, it doesn't even make sense. And it's like someone's translated something a couple of times. Like, you know, when you like put something through Google Translate a couple of times, it just suddenly doesn't sound real anymore. Essentially that's what's written down. So it was kind of a very lucky moment that this came through fully formed, and I remembered it the next day.
Impressive.
So,
definite round of applause there.
Thank you.
And obviously, as we spoke to on my Sunday Tribune article as well, I've known you for, we reckon, 3 years or so now, don't we? So now maybe even more thinking about it. But when we first got meeting, Richard, I remember you were more of a poet, really. So what made you change direction to what you wanted to write this as a novella?
So I think we've known each other since I moved up to Manchester in 2017. So at least since then, because I remember I kind of instantly started wanting to perform and everything, and Speakeasy was the first one. But yeah, so I'm usually a poet, you're correct. I don't know, when this story came to me, it just came as a novella. It never felt longer, never felt like poetry to me. It's like, I don't know, it's kind of like a possession kind of thing. Like I just got the idea for the story and it just had to exist as it does. I think poetry, I always kind of reserve it for my own personal experiences and my like thoughts and feelings. And fictional stuff, I tend to try and just use prose because it feels more authentic to it. I think anyone who's read my stuff is kind of used to my poetry being my own personal thoughts and feelings, and me just then insisting that everyone be a part of my brain for 10 minutes while I read it. And that's like, I don't know, it just kind of came out as prose. So I don't know what else to say about that one. That just kind of
no, it's best
it was one of those ideas where it just comes through really powerfully and it like insists on the form it takes. So there was not much I could do about that. Wasn't my responsibility.
No, it's fair. I think it's fair enough, because I'm always a believer in any piece you write, you can't guarantee what form it's going to take. Because I'm doing a submission for a book Amanda's getting together at the moment, and on crime and horror stories. When she wants poems and crime short stories. I don't write short stories. I'm at 800 words into a short story at the moment. So like it just takes away mind of its own sometimes, doesn't it? It's
Yeah,
almost like invisible hands directing you, definitely. So with that. Now, I want to go curious as well, because if people have read the book, they'll notice the actual first part of the book. You set at a funeral. Why did you what made you want to start this at a funeral?
So the story existed without the funeral scene, and as I was writing more when I was working with the publishers and we were putting more into it and fleshing out and bringing back the original ideas I had, like certain characters had to be cut when it was my dissertation submission, and kind of bring those back in. I just couldn't help but picture them all at a funeral, and I thought it was this really great moment to kind of just twist everything we expect about funerals in literature. Like, they're usually these sad affairs, and it's usually raining, and there's a black umbrella, and everyone's crying. And I kind of thought, like, this character, this unnamed girl, she doesn't have that. She doesn't get that. Even in death, I think everyone disappoints her. And being able to like to play with them in that way, and then kind of have that set up the whole book, this kind of like known but unknown thing. It really just, I don't know, it kind of just kept coming back as an idea. And when I was having coffee with one of my publishers, and I was like, what if I wrote them as a funeral for the prologue? And she was like, yes, do it, write it now. And I think I wrote it in about 10 minutes.
Wow.
It kind of was really, like, I think it was definitely sat there just waiting below the surface. But yeah, so they and once again, it links to that whole, like, it demanded to be a novella, and I think that prologue just kind of sets it up perfectly. It tells you exactly what you're in for. It's not going to be an affair where people get what they want or they deserve. And I think so it really does, like, I think, discourage anyone who expects a happy ending, unfortunately.
We're poets. We don't believe in happy endings, as I would say. Innit?
I wouldn't have a career if I did believe in them.
Now, back to one point before, I should have asked you. I'm asking these questions in the wrong order here, which is very me. But you mentioned before about this has done his dissertation for originally. Did you find when you got to the final draft, had it changed a lot after working on it with your publisher?
Yeah, I think anyone who read the dissertation version, a couple of my friends did and my family did. And it was always like, yeah, it's good, but like I think my boyfriend phrased it perfectly. He was like, it just feels like there's so much missing. And I think the dissertation barely just kind of touched the surface of it. And again, like I mentioned, there were so many characters. Ed, for example, had to be completely cut out. So getting to add him back in and flesh him out so much was more fun. And just like other things, like the scene when she's getting ready, that's so relatable for me as a woman. And that was definitely kind of plucked from my own memories of like trying to get dressed. But just getting to like add things in like that in, and just really getting to like experience the characters as they came to me, because they did kind of come fully formed out of thin air, which is why I can't imagine ever doing a sequel for this, just because they feel so related to these series of events. But yeah, I think if you looked at them side by side, there's connections, but not enough to like explain it fully, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
it's completely. Like the dissertation was almost like the brief notes of it.
Yeah, that's fine. So, okay, there's only a couple of quick questions I want to ask you today, anyway, when we get you the reading for us. Now, where do you see it? Okay, I could ask, where do you see your writing going next? Or where would you like your writing to go next? Do you have any more plans in mind?
Always got plans going. I mean, I would love to do a poetry collection next. That is something that's really kind of would be very relating back to kind of like how you know me and how most people know me, which is through the poetry scene. And I would love to do a poetry collection. I do have a couple of ideas for maybe some prose. And I think kind of just keeping my options open, waiting for the ideas to come through. And again, like this coming about as it has was just like a moment of like dumb luck. So I guess just wait for another opening like that. But yeah, like a couple of like ponds going, kind of like get like a couple of different paths I could go down, definitely.
Oh, cool. Well, we won't ask you any more on that today then. Next time you get another book out where we get new weekend, and then you can ask us, it explains how it all come back dumb luck again then. So now, obviously, just to clarify for people, if people are interested, you can find your book quite easy on Amazon, can't they? On all good booksellers or evil news agents, whatever. But if people want to read out more about you apart from that, where are they best going?
I mean, there's always I have my writing Twitter, which is written by HJ. I don't post much. I retweet a lot, and a lot of it's quite stupid, if I do say myself.
That's right.
Also my poetry by HJ Instagram, where I post a lot of like poems and things I'm working on. And I'm going to start doing kind of like what I'm reading at the minute. So that'll be fun to kind of engage more with. But yeah, so they're the main two. And unfortunately, if you want any more information, you have to buy the book and read the About the Author section.
Sounds good. That's a good hard sell, that one.
Famous plug there, really. But
oh yeah, that's not even like a subtle plug, right? So that's very really under the carpet.
Just buy a coffee, everyone.
Because these are
call one of my parents and buy 10 coffees and then get me.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they did. And then they pass them out to friends and family. So, and I think they're just doing that every couple of months. I mean, there's enough now. I think there's more signed copies than there are unsigned. So, I don't know about that.
Oh, it's called parent support. My philosophy. So, I can definitely love and respect to your parents for that one. Definitely. So, right. Okay. Anyway, so we'll conclude this bit now, and we'll let you get a poem and maybe a novel ready for us. So, hang around because I love this young lady's work. So, see you all now.
Spoken Label.
Hi guys. Straight over to Lena now. Over to you, my friend.
So this is a poem from a collection that I've recently finished in my third year of university. It's a collection of sonnets called Unlearning, and this is the last one in the series. The title is, I have tried to complete the act of unlearning. These are the words I wish to send back to my younger self. Hack pretty from your bones, douse it in petrol, use the fire to warm through the layers of ice. Take the lessons and all the pain to feed the fire, which will burn them to ash. The ash will rise a red bird from you to find freedom in the morning. But for now, the fire conjures the shadows. The shadow that follows you, you sit with her. She is anger, until anger runs out. Then she will say her true name. Let her hands hold your face still, as you breathe in the fumes of pretty to the bottom of your paper lungs. Pretty girls don't eat that. You don't want to go up a size, do you? These are the words the fire will hunger for. From the cold ashes, you can grow impressive and sweet roses, a testament to you alone.
Brilliant. I love sonnets. Had you wrote many sonnets before that then? Was that a first one, really?
It's like a collection of 10 sonnets that I did for a university submission. And it was just kind of like, again, one of those like weird moments where I was like, I'm going to write sonnets and no one's going to stop me. And then I kind of was like, the whole series plays with sonnets as a form. I've been posting them over on my poetry Instagram, which I recommend people check out.
Subtle plug again.
That's the one. Oh, I'm full of it today. Oh my gosh, I think it must be the coffee.
No comment there.
So it was like playing around with like what even makes a sonnet, what determines a sonnet. So in the series, I think there's only 2 perfect sonnets, and the rest either have more lines than necessary, or too little lines, or they aren't got the right now with symbols. And that was just something really fun to play with. So that's definitely a favorite series of mine. But yeah, okay. And now I'm going to be reading the prologue to The Winter of Our Femininity. Okay. The funeral is a steaming affair. The sun shines down in an undesirable way for such a sad occasion. Any other assembly of people would be happy, smiling, their faces tilted upwards to feel the gorgeous yellow warmth spread over them. No one here does that, and our black clothing absorbs the heat. It makes sweat run down our backs, pooling in our seats. I stare at my black shoes. They have a scuff on them, probably from the pavement that I had stumbled on walking here. I wish I could reach down and force it off with the rubbing of my fingers. What is everyone thinking of me? I shouldn't have come here, especially with a scuffed left shoe. Who does she think she is? They're thinking. She didn't even know her. I want to address them and their stares. I knew her. I wanted to tell them. In her death, I knew her better than all of you, you murderers. I see Lottie is here. Her dress is far too short for such an occasion, and her body is slumped against Ed's, his arms holding her body up. She looks as if she'd not stopped crying. Her eyes are bloodshot, and her nose was almost rubbed raw by the screwed-up tissue she is holding in her hand. She looks like a mess. Good. Ed looks as if he's doing better. In fact, I can tell he is. His jaw is set solid and tight, his mouth a fine line. He looks everywhere but the freshly dug grave. The air holds the smell of fresh dirt. The muscles in his arms look well defined once again, like they did back in our first year of classes. He's been working out. Who can work out so quickly after the death of a loved one? I wonder how he pictures her now. Is she a pile of broken bones on the patio floor with a pool of blood growing around her? Or is she the girl he used to fuck, slumped together in small bathrooms at parties? I think a lot about the moment he saw her. Her blood slipping between the slates, washing the dirt away. His eyes glossed over with some kind of knowledge. His jaw locked the same way it is now. What do you know? He hadn't screamed the way I had, and I didn't even know her name. I hadn't touched her the way he had. His life was so mixed with hers. He didn't even cry. Lottie had been different. She had tried to touch the body. She tried to hold it, like an actress selling the final scene in a Shakespearean tragedy. She made the whole thing harder to look at, and the paramedics and the police had to pull her away. She clawed at them. She had to warm up, she told them. She was cold. She needed her. The body was no longer the star of the show. It was Lottie. Once again, she had solidified her status as leading lady as the body was whisked away. Varjak had been a similar case, but he didn't show up to his lectures for the first 2 weeks. And when he did show up, it made me wish he had never come back. His clothes were crumpled, and to be near him was to smell a mixture of urine and vodka. He stumbled his way through slides and collapsed halfway through, his tears choking him and making him cough. I didn't want to comfort him like the other girls in class. I wanted him to feel what he'd made her feel, and his tears didn't last long. He found a new girl soon after. Today he stands close to her, and she whispers something to him, her light blonde hair swishing forward with her motions, capturing the light. She doesn't care for where she was. His eyes gleam. Her death means nothing would change for him. And he is here, I presume, to make sure her secrets that she had threatened to spill would stay buried with her. The family stays close to the hole as her remains are lowered in. I close my eyes tight. I try to think of happy places, happy things, but I only see her open eyes, so surprised with the pain of her fall. I see what her body must look like now, rotting and pale. Her eyes, though, her eyes are the same. I hear someone let out a sigh of relief behind me. I whip my head around, but I can't tell who it was. I turn back as the family throws soil onto the coffin. I hear a whisper, meant to be quiet, but loud enough for the second row to hear. I'm not sad she's dead. And that is the prologue. Andy, you're on mute.
I am indeed. I might turn to be daft now. We'll let you do the hard sell again. Where can the book be found?
So you can find this on Amazon, and you can, and then you can follow me on Poetry by HJ for more updates about the book or other upcoming projects.
Watch your space, definitely. So, been a pleasure today, Helena. So, as always, thank you very much for today.
It's been great. Thank you so much.
We look forward to having you on again in the future, definitely.
Yeah.
So, right, everybody, hang around, Helena. I need to speak to you off mic as well as normal. But thank you again. And this is Andy N saying, stay safe, everybody, and stay over. And we'll see you all soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Spoken Label.